Good evening. This is Dr. Marco Ferrucci from the Chiropractic Source. I wanted to take a moment to educate about the vital needs of life. Because with this pandemic going around, we all understand the coronavirus. It's going around. Everybody's talking about it. News, social media, and a lot of confusing information is being put out there on what are the most important things to do. You might hear on the news that they say isolate yourself and try to distance yourself. Other times they're saying go out in the public and walk around and get sunlight. So it's really confusing on what the most important things to do. So I want to bring it back to what is the most important things in order for you to stay strong and healthy so that the environment around you could adapt to. So I'm going to teach about what we call the vital needs of life. So if you think about the things that are vital, what does vital mean? It means that you need that thing in order to survive. It's vital to life. So I went shopping the other day with my wife, and some of the vital needs that people think about, like toilet paper and paper towels, they're off the shelves. You know, when is that really a vital need? Can you survive without toilet paper? Can you survive without paper towels? You could. It would be a different situation than you're used to, but it's not vital to life. So I want to take a moment to talk about the 4 things that we teach that are vital to life. And when you think about the things that are needs in our life, the lower portion, or the lowest one that we talk about, is food. Everybody always knows that food is important. Food is fuel, but it's not the most important thing in life. So if we talk about the first one, let's talk about food. So we're going to write down here on our pyramid, food. So now the question is, what food should you be consuming? Because what are the things that are going to make people the strongest? And what are the things that are going to make people the weakest? And right now, with bacteria and viruses and cancerous cells developing so quickly, it's important that we limit sugar and high carbohydrates in our diet. Because the viruses and the cancerous cells that are around us all the time, they survive the most on glucose or sugar. So if you limit the amount of sugar you have, that's a first great step in the right direction. But then you got to think about, what should I consume then? If I'm taking out a lot of the carbohydrates and sugar, what should I consume? So if you think about what you should consume, the major things that you should be putting on your body on a regular basis are vegetables, low glycemic fruits, the good fats, and protein. That's the majority of the foods that you should be consuming on a regular basis. So if you just think about putting good fuel in your body, you know, we say garbage in, garbage out. If you're putting garbage in your body, you're going to get garbage results out of your body. And if you're a weakened system, or if you're a weakened individual, you're more likely to catch the things that are around you. So that is the first vital need that we talked about, is food. What's something that is a vital need that may be a little bit higher on the hierarchy than food? What do you think that could be? Water is a great one. So hydration is super important. So we're going to talk about water. So now hydration is important. The water that we consume on a daily basis is different person to person. We usually like to give the formula of 1/2 of your body weight in ounces of water per day. That's the most common thing that you might hear people say about hydration. But then you got to think about what you're consuming besides water. Because if you're consuming alcoholic beverages, if you're consuming high sugary drinks like sodas and juices, if you're consuming a lot of coffee and tea throughout the day, those are unfortunately dehydrating you. They're diuretics. So if you're having a lot of those throughout the day, that number of how much you need in water per day actually has to increase. So at minimum, 1/2 of your body weight in ounces. But moving forward, you want to think also, am I having other drinks that are dehydrating you? So we talked about food. We talked about water. Now what's the next thing up that you think is important? Because if we talked about food, it gives us the fuel. If we talk about the water, it gives us oxygen. Oh, no, I said that wrong. Either way, I gave it away. Oxygen is your next thing. We talked about food, hydration. Next thing is oxygen. Sorry for giving that away a little too early. So we got oxygen, O2 we're going to call it. So O2 is extremely important. Oxygen is extremely important because when you breathe in the air, that we have in our environment, you're going to get oxygen. Now, every cell, tissue, and organ in our body uses that oxygen for fuel. So if you take the oxygen that we breathe in and you take the food that we consume, which in the body mostly turns into glucose, the glucose and the oxygen comes together and forms what's called ATP. ATP is energy that every cell, tissue, and organ in our body uses. So our oxygen is very, very important as well. And what's the last thing that we talk about in the hierarchy of needs, or the vital needs? And that is, I'm going to label it NS. And that is your nervous system. The flow that comes from your brain down the spinal cord, out the spinal nerves, is what's going to control you as a human being. Everything about you, every heartbeat that you have, every digestion that you do, every thought that you have, every movement that you have, that is going to be under control of that nervous system. So our nervous system is the most important thing, because if you think about survival with these needs, I usually start off with this, but I'm going to add it right now. If you think about survival rates, if I removed food from your life, how long can you survive? Some people might say weeks, some people might say days, but we can say that it takes days to weeks to survive without water. So we could say that that's one of the lower vital needs, but it is vital to life. Now, if I ask you the same question about water, how long can you survive without water? Now, that's going to be a little bit different, right? So instead of days and weeks, it might be hours to days, maybe. So if we talk about hours or days, that's a little bit more vital than food. That's why it's on the higher end of it. But now, what if we talk about oxygen? If I cut off your oxygen, how long can you survive? That's a lot quicker, right? So without oxygen, let's say, seconds to minutes, right? So let's just write minutes. So we can go maybe a day or so, or a couple days without food. If we take out food and water, we could go a couple hours to maybe a day. Oxygen, you got a couple minutes before you're unable to survive. But if I cut off the energy going from your brain to the body, let's say we severed that spinal cord, how quickly will you survive? Instant, right? If I cut off that energy going from the brain to the body, we're instantly no longer alive. So that's why this pyramid is important, because it talks about what are the most important things for us to focus on. Now, chiropractors are the ones that know the importance of the nervous system the most. And that's why we teach that if we have a good structured spine, i.e. we like to say good posture, then we know the energy from the brain to the body is working as optimal as we could. We like to say in the office, optimal spine, optimal health. But if we have a structure that's not very strong, let's say we shift our spine, or we have that very common forward head posture or rounded shoulders, that is actually changing the structure, which is changing the amount of stress that's on the nervous system, and our nervous system directly controls our immune system. So if we take stress off of the spine and nervous system, we can impact the immune system to function better. So if we are consuming the right foods, we're having enough good hydration, we're doing breathing exercises and taking long breaths and taking time to actually breathe from our diaphragm and not our chest, we actually are getting enough oxygen to survive. And then if you're taking care of your spine and nervous system, you know that the energy flow is at 100%, or as close to it as we can. So that kind of puts things in perspective of what are the most important things that we should be worrying about or caring for at this moment. Because right now, you and your family have to create a strong host. If you're not a strong host, you're more susceptible to the things around you. So if we could follow this type of importance and not get worried about the hustle and bustle and go into fear and then go into all these other things that are happening right now, you could focus on the most important things, and that's how you're going to create yourself to be a strong host. So I hope that was valuable information. Share this with as many people as you want. I believe it's something that everybody needs to understand. And I hope everybody's doing what they could do right now to be the best that they could be. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or call our office, etc. So you have a great rest of your day.